anything else. All right.
That would be if Dennis gets all tingly.
Yes.
Yeah.
If Dennis gets all tingly, yes. All right. Share, and let's see if I can go into presentation. Okay, everyone can see the screen?
Yep.
Cool. Nobody's got it cut off or anything. Okay, so Ting, as I mentioned a little while ago, is a device which plugs into your home electrical outlet and monitors the power and electrical signals in your house. So supposedly it's supposed to be able to recognize short circuits and intermittent arcing in your wiring and be able to let you know that this condition is occurring long before there's a fire. So I researched Ting's company, Whisker Labs, some of the patents that they've submitted and how they're monitoring your home electrical supply and how it is able to detect and identify these micro arcs in the wiring and avoid possible fires. So they also have an app from Google Play or Apple so that your smartphone can interface to the Ting sensor and be used to configure it and also to provide the monitor, display, and output. So the sensor plugs into just about any outlet you want. I don't think there's any condition that you have to be close to the electrical panel or any particular location. It basically can see everything in your current house. I would say if you had three-phase, you might have an issue, but maybe not as much with a conventional residential service. They only offer it for residences and only in a select number of states currently, because this does interface to a server where it captures some of this information.
Hey, Ed,
Yeah,
does it see both sides of the 12240?
I believe so.
Okay,
So I believe it doesn't have a problem seeing the arcing on either side of the main, because if you realize, if you're monitoring from neutral to one side, you can see arcing through the neutral on the other side. Because remember, there is your wire, your neutral is a ground point, and you really only have two real wires carrying power from the transformer to your house. And a lot of return voltage goes down the neutral line. So like other home appliances, it interfaces to an app, which you configure your Ting sensor to use your Wi-Fi connection to communicate back to Whisker Labs if there's a problem. Now, I found this out through State Farm, who is offering it to me because I have an insurance policy with them, and it's free for no charge over the 3-year term. And after 3 years, they'll decide if they want to keep going with it or something else. I wasn't able to make this work for my Michigan property, only the one in Illinois. So here's the screens that are showed up on the Google Play information to give you an idea what some of these, because I don't have this thing currently yet. I'm awaiting it to arrive tomorrow afternoon. But you can see that this thing is able to monitor the voltage on the left-hand side, where you can actually see the actual across time, what has happened to your voltage in your house. I'm not sure what hi-fi is, if that's some indication of what is found in terms of interference. It does show it at intervals of 15 seconds. And I noticed I can see here it says, well, there's notifications and the quality can be it also has some indication of HVAC. So maybe you can see when your air conditioner is turned on and off. And then you have event notifications that come through the app, which indicates, surges, brownouts, outages, when it comes back into service, and higher fire hazard. So that's kind of neat to be able to do all of that information. And then there's notifications that talk about a potential fire hazard, which would, part of this service allows for up to $1,000 of professional remediation should it be necessary. That's kind of interesting. Although I still would like to know how they diagnose it and find the arcing in the house. And once I plug this in, if it finds any arcing, I'm going to be doing that. So what can it show? It appears to be able to monitor your power and the quality of the power being delivered to your home. Now, quality of your power delivered to your home would include surges, sags, single cycle drops or multi-cycle drops. These are the kind of things that go into measuring quality of power. Outage length and duration, and whether or not it bounced several times coming back, whether it's surge, whether it's browned out. So it looks like it can also maintain a history of your power outages and durations, as well as detected power problems. I would love to be able to save that and print it. We'll see if that works. So if I find anything out, I will let you know in a future meeting how it works. Now, what is it looking at? Well, ideally, your sinusoid waveform is a pure sinusoid, but you'll never see that in your typical house if you ever measured the voltage with an oscilloscope. Typically like an analog one or a very a digital one that has a lot of very high bandwidth, because you can't see some of this unless you have a high enough bandwidth. This is showing what happens when there is some second degree harmonic distortion of the primary sine wave. So the resultant distorted wave is what you would get if there's a significant source of second harmonic. What generates second harmonic? Full wave bridge rectifiers in computers generate second harmonics. So yeah, depending on whether or not you have a power supply that is green rated or not, might mean how much second order harmonic is introduced by it. Oops, let's go back. Previous. Okay, so here's what is more likely. You have not just second harmonic, but third, fifth, seventh, all can be distorted by how, if you have certain kinds of motors, compressors, especially air conditioning, or if you have refrigerators, if you have electronic motors of some sort, they can generate harmonics. A lot of them have filters to suppress the harmonic going back into the power line, but not every one does. But that's more likely what the kind of waveform you start to see when you have a lot of noise. I mean, I've looked at one and it doesn't even look as regular as this. Okay, so here's right out of their patent disclosure. It's showing your power line coming in a distribution transformer. So there's your both sides in neutral, and it shows the circuit breakers on either side and the loads and some 220 devices. But basically, it's going in on one circuit. It's not going in on two circuits. And what it's doing is it's actually looking at the waveform presented on the voltage. So it's keeping track of the voltage. You'll notice that the scale on here says 10 to the 7th power. Okay, so this is 10 megahertz to 100 megahertz here that's being shown on, this is a spectrum analysis graph of what frequencies it's seeing. Okay, and the type of things you will see when there's a microarcs as well. I think the second graph is the one if it actually has microarcs, and the first graph is not having microarcs. So this also shows how we can see multiple sockets at the same time, and it's showing you what a standard cable would just show and then what the different outlets can show. So here's some of the algorithm that is in the patent disclosure on how they claim this. So they're going to take the incoming AC waveform and sample it at 27 megahertz. That's at 27 million samples. It's then going to sort them into 512 bins, calculating the mean value and the max value, then calculating the difference between the mean value and the max value per bin. And it accumulates this over 15 cycles, captures the mean, max, and difference to accumulate the maximum of the 15 cycles. Then it does a derivative across the accumulated max values, which basically is the slope of the incoming waveform, And then it calculates the average transient amplitude over the voltage cycle. It then calculates the average transient amplitude over 15 different phase sections within the voltage cycle. So it breaks the voltage cycle into 16 pieces and sees what the average transient was in each one of those places. It then determines the ratio of the average peak transient near maximum voltage versus that same ratio at 0 voltage. And if it exceeds a preset value, it identifies these transients as potential electrical discharges. And now in English, it's listening to the electrical signals in your house and can determine if it is inside or outside the house, and if your wiring might be arcing inside of an appliance or inside an outlet box. It can then monitor this condition and set a warning to the application. Now from the Fcc Id disclosure. So this looks like what it appears to be inside of the Ting sensor with an external antenna and with a circuit board made by, it looks like Red Bear. That's the bottom, this is the top. So does this look similar to a Red Bear Duo card? I think so. It's got the same position of the switches and the chips and the USB connection. Let's go back again one more time. It might be the previous version, but you even see there's a chip capacitor here and some pads for something else. And it looks like it's got the chip capacitor loaded here. So this is a Red Bear Duo board. So I'm trying to get an idea, what is its capabilities? Okay, well, if you want to go on those links, it'll tell you, but it's an ARM processor that goes on, can crank at 120 megahertz. It has 128 kilobits of static RAM and a megabyte of flash. It has only a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.1 combo chip. And it has an onboard 16 megabit, 2 megabit bytes flash of SPI and integrated chip antenna with external antenna pad, 18 IO pins, status LED, single-sided PCB, so it can be mounted on top of something else. And it comes with the header soldered, and its dimensions are about 3/4 of an inch by about 1 3/4 inches. Features of the Duo board. So it is a development board that's used for IoT, Internet of Things, which seems it's likely that that's what they would have used. So it contains Wi-Fi, Bluetooth low energy, and cloud capability all inside of this form factor. So once it makes its Wi-Fi connection, it can interface to a module in the cloud. And there's various types of interfaces that it supports, including Python, JavaScript. Looks like it's got the full Wi-Fi stack that it would need. And it comes with, it's developed Android and iOS apps. That's basically what I had on the Ting device. So let me cancel sharing. Stop share. There it is. Boom. So any questions? Yes, go ahead, Carl.
Are these available for purchase?
I believe so. I think I've seen on the website, if you look for Whisker Labs, there are places where it says you can buy these things, but I don't know what the cost is. I didn't research it that far. But I'm not sure if State Farm is just going to monopolize their quantity of what's available and send it out. So obviously somebody is working with them, and it's not expensive. I mean, the board itself, that little board that it was like $22 for the board, but it was out of stock on the second version. Yes, go ahead, Dennis.
Just so I can try and understand this. So let me just take a typical room, and let's say in my room I've got 4 electrical outlets around the room.
Yeah.
If I've got a lamp plugged into one of them and it's on, is this thing really checking all, because there's no power no usage in the other 3, is this thing really checking those as well for any,
well,
or I have to have it active with power to test it?
Unless it's arcing to its other lead inside of and that pun intended, yeah, inside of the other outlet. you wouldn't normally see anything wrong with that outlet until it's drawing power.
Okay.
Because the only way you're going to generate an arc is if power is going through a connection. Either it's arcing to its other conductor, arcing to ground,
Okay.
or it's arcing through the connection with where the wire nut is, or to inside of the outlet, or inside an appliance. And you can see this on every all of your circuits in your house simultaneously. You know how you're sitting in your house and all of a sudden the air conditioning turns on and all the lights dim? Well, I guess every outlet can see everything that happens with the voltage coming into your house. So,
But to thoroughly test, you need to have everything.
well,
plugged
no,
in.
you don't, it's monitoring all the time. You don't do a one-time test. You just turn this thing on. And if it notices something, it's going to alert you to it. Now you can say, what did I just turn on?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, maybe I should turn these things off until it says it went away. And now I know either what socket it's in, or I know that it's connected to that light fixture, the chandelier in the front. You could turn on one thing at a time and see, okay, do I see anything there? Nope, 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 nope. Got all the lights on, didn't see anything. It must be happy. But I think you do have to draw some power. I don't know if this thing is going to get set off when you plug a vacuum cleaner into an outlet and it's going to say, oh, guess what? I saw something here that's not happy. But after I get this and I get my first alert and I'm just like, okay, what is it? What is it sensing? Is it sensing is it complaining about my UPSs? Is it complaining about something else?
So if you like plugged in your a lamp or something and this thing activated,
yeah,
you would at first you wouldn't know whether it was the lamp itself or the outlet, but then you could plug it in somewhere else and see if it's still activated again, then know it's the lamp.
well, you leave it plugged. Yeah, you could do some diagnosis. Is it the appliance or not? I mean, I may test it to make sure it's working by firing up one of my arc welders. Either the wire welder or the stick welder. I think either one of them will generate enough micro arcs to drive it crazy. They didn't ask me if I had an arc welder when I signed up for this thing. But I mean, that would be a good test as well, or something that draws a lot of power, like maybe a hair dryer, or a toaster. I mean, it's possible that it might see something intermittent when it does that. Could be a coffee maker. I mean, when the question is for how long is it arcing? Because I know when you have something like a fry pan or a Mr. Coffee or something, after the water runs through and it heats up the sensor, it opens circuits and doesn't reconnect until it cools down.
Sid has sent us a bunch of chats here.
Yeah.
What do you got, Sid?
Yeah. Ting fire.
Well, yeah, the first one is how Ting works. The second one is the shopping for it. It shows it as $349 in stock.
Wow.
With a year of the service.
Yeah. And that's the same thing that State Farm is offering for free. So if you're on State Farm, you might be getting an email from them and saying, hey, do you want to try this? I think that was kind of a nice move on their part to offer it.
Well, it's sort of, they're trying to be because they're like a good neighbor. State Farm is there.
That's right. Yeah. And we're trying to keep Ting alive because we invested money in them. Well, they may have had, that may have been a deal they worked out. Said, hey, we'll give it to you a fraction of the cost. And if it costs so much after the 3 years or something, or maybe I get a discount on my insurance policy if I keep it beyond that, it might be worth it.
I'll keep an eye on it. The thing I just got from State Farm was one of those plug in your car things for monitoring your driving.
Oh, I could never do that. I'd have to be unplugging it all the time or plug it into my car that I'm not in.
There you go.
Well, usually on the way back from Michigan, it says your best time is an hour and 58 minutes to go that 120 miles. And I've done it in an hour and 45 or better. including construction.
So if my house burns down and the fire marshal comes out and says, yeah, we tracked it down, it's this little thing here, it says Ting that was in your wall. You tore it out, burned your house down. Do I get my money back for just the device?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I think State Farm would still cover you if you're in a State Farm participant, but it's the whole goal is to try and find those things before they happen. So in that respect, it's a preventive rather than a post-op type of arrangement. And then, again, this is probably logging on a Ting server somewheres, so it might see the history of what happened in your house before you got back to it. So I don't know what the range is or whether this thing will alert me when I'm not here. It'd be nice to know when I had a power outage. And because right now, my neighbor, when I was in Michigan last, my neighbor called and asked if I had power or not. And I said, I don't know because I'm not home right now, but ComEd didn't send me a text that said there's an outage in our area. So I was able to tell her that because I'm on the ComEd notifying me if there's an interruption in my power. And then it sends me something that says that we think we've restored your power. Yes, Stanford.
I'm just curious how this would work if you had a solar installation on your roof and you had, an interconnect for it in your house. I mean, just as an open concept question.
I don't, as long as your inverters are producing pure sine wave and not generating harmonics. I mean, even if it has some harmonics, because I've seen comments on these things that some people have monitored this even when they had a generator plugged into their house.
Okay.
So if they can work with it, because he could see the voltage coming from the generator. Okay, so that's kind of interesting, be able to monitor the generator power as well. So if it'll work with most generators, I know there are some out there that are horrible in terms of total harmonic distortion. If you ever do get a generator, I think I had a presentation a couple of months back about generators. That's one of the ones you want to steer clear of. If you can afford it, the inverter generators are better. Well, guess what a solar energy panel uses? An inverter. So it generates clean sinusoidal power, not square wave.
Okay.
Square wave is probably the worst thing that you can probably handle because it's just an infinite number of harmonics with a true square wave. That answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I can try it. If I bring a solar panel or two out and hook it up to the thing and plug it in, I could see whether or not it affects it. I need to bring two panels out, I think. No, I might be able to do it with one. Might be able to do it with one. Okay, State Farm. Yeah, I saw that. I think I saw that one where I saw the thing where they were going to try and protect.
Well, the headline of that page is help protect your family from electrical fires for free.
Yeah. Yeah, but the key is qualified policyholders in selected states, because I signed up for one and then said sign up for another one at your other residence. Yes, click. Oh, you know that I have another place in Michigan that I'm insuring with you, and Michigan is not one of those states. And that's the one that I would worry about the electrical connections with, because whoever wired some of these things up here, I have something that I actually can show that I just did. Let me get to something before I share it. That's what I want right there.
Yeah. Illinois is one of the allowed states, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Let me get back to Mr. Zoom here. Okay. Share. Okay, good. Share. All right, let's magnify this a little bit. Do you notice anything about this fuse panel? The first
How
fuse,
old is it?
it's real old. probably in the 50s or earlier. This fuse and this fuse are unused. There's nothing connected to them. There's only 6 circuits wired here.
Well, you have some extra fuses.
Yeah, I have some extra fuses. The other thing is, you can see there are ground wires for all the cables coming in. Okay, but not all of those ground wires are connected to the 3-prong outlets that are in the wall. I plug in my tester on the 3-prong outlets and it says open ground, open ground. Plug it into the GFCI, open ground. Plug it into another GFCI, open ground. Plug it into a third GFCI. This one's wired correctly. I was kind of surprised by the ones I found that were actually wired correctly.
Those screw heads are looking a little rusty there.
The ones on the bottom are definitely corroded. Yeah, you can look at them. Right? That's the beauty of having one of these 48 megapixel things. You can, wow, look at the neutrals here and look at the hots right here. And they're corroded. Yeah, definitely need some TLC. Let's go back this way. There's another picture of the one flying. There's the top. You can see the ground and the 2 neutral cables that are ground cables are coming in from the power line.
Is that aluminum wiring?
No, I think it's just tinned copper. This is, although it could have been aluminum, the main, I'm not sure if the main, let's see, can I see the main? The main is aluminum, but that's good for feeder cable. Feeder cable can be aluminum. And typically in your house right now, you probably do have aluminum coming in, at least to the meter, maybe not between the meter and your panel, but almost all of the service wiring coming into your house now has been aluminum for years. But as long as it's in a aluminum certified connector, you're good. Yeah, so anyhow. Just thought I'd share that a little bit. So that's the house I would really like to see if any arcing is taking place.
Why didn't you unplug the one in Chicago? Take it up there with you.
I can try it, but I'll have to reconfigure it for the different Wi-Fi or make sure that I have a duplicate Wi-Fi and see if it's happy with it or not. But they may complain when they see the IP address it's coming in from and say, I'll have to look at the terms of service and see if it says anything about moving it between houses or not. I don't want them to kick me off the plan in the first week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
State Farm monitoring this and sending reports?
There is no monthly subscription. They say you get a 3-year free subscription. And then after 3 years, they'll decide whether or not they're going to continue doing it or whatever. So I figure if they stop doing it after 3 years, I get to take it apart and see if there really is that duo board in there and if I can reprogram it not to use their servers. I mean, I would just as soon have it talk to my NAS drive and put something on the NAS drive if I wanted to look back historically. And if there's something that needs my attention, it can ship me an email wherever I'm at and said, hey, Ed, you better get home. Send your daughter over here and have her turn off the power.
It could be configured into your smart meter too.
I don't think it would be able to talk to the smart meter because it did not identify on the specifications that it supported Zigbee. Depending on the smart meter, my smart meter out here is a Zigbee connected device. I mean, it's got Wi-Fi as well. It can communicate via 2.4 gigahertz and do some, be able to probably talk to my neighbor's meter and talk to the meter after that until it all gets all the way to the pole that has the receiver on it and the transmitter that goes long haul distance. But they engineered the smart meter system so that it can daisy chain the packets along to get to the host. And they have calculated how much load is that network can support. And that's why they can only measure your power every 30 minutes. So that's the window. Every 30 minutes, it captures the information and ships it up in a packet up to the server. indirectly through all the other meters until it gets to a pole that has one of those transmitter dongles on the top that's transmitting over a longer haul. I'm not sure if that's microwave or something else, a 918 megahertz or one of the other ones. But that's why they, because I asked them when I was putting in smart meters and I was interviewed by ComEd, I got to talk to some of the ComEd engineers. And I said, is there a reason why it's only 30 minutes? Why can't be? He said, well, that's the throughput of the system. So they can't go beyond that. Or at least it gives them a margin for retransmissions as well in case there's errors. But it's a pretty powerful 802.11 transmitter in its own right. And the Zigbee, when it talks to my my meter, that's one of the differences. If you ever watched a smart meter in operation, watching the faceplate of the meter, it toggles between the various displays, and then it might say the word open or something like that on there, and then it keeps on going to each of the subsequent displays. But when you have a remote connected Zigbee meter reader like Rainforest Automation, like I have, it says busy instead of free. So when that thing's hooked up, it's communicating to my Zigbee device instead. And that thing sort of wallops a lot of channel 6. It's Bluetooth, or not Bluetooth, but Zigbee channel 11, which is right in the middle of the band and one of the defaults. And it turns out to be just about channel 6. And if I'm doing, was doing wireless captures with a capture device, I'd see these, what looked like to be a 3,000 byte packet come sailing through. And in fact, it was probably much smaller, but it was using a different kind of modulation that my my Wi-Fi dongle could not decode because it wasn't a Zigbee device. But it would see interfering packets of that size. And I'm wondering, what is that? And I moved my Rainforest Automation device away or used different channels, and then I didn't see the interference anymore. So I know there's some communication back and forth between the display device and the smart meter. So would this thing interfere? Would Ting interfere with the smart meter? No, they're probably oblivious to each other. One's on Zigbee and one's on Wi-Fi. It might have some problem with some Wi-Fi. If you put it in a section of your house where you're not close to the router, they probably want it to be somewhat near a router where it can transmit without interference.
Cool. Mine will be here in 4 days.
Okay, cool. Mine's on its way. It'll be, it was shipped and it's supposed to arrive tomorrow.
Yeah, it said 2 days for process, 2 days for ship.
Yeah.
So it's all and it pulled up my address and information and said, you're good. We love you.
Yep. Yep. So anybody else who's a State Farm customer, you can go ahead and try and see if you can order one if you want. You know, you are going to share information about your power with somebody. But I figured, you know, whether my lights are on or off might be a good thing.
And at some point they want the device back at the end of the 3 years.
Yeah.
The fine print says at the end of the 3 years you can either return it or buy it at a price at the current price.
At the current price, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Oh, I'm sorry. It was damaged in my house fire.
Well, it has that $1,000 policy as part of it. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a policy. Yeah. So interesting. Or I may just find out, you know, because there is open source on that Ting M1. If you look around, they might actually have the source bouncing around somewheres, but it seems kind of weird that they would go ahead and try and get a patent on the application and then publish the source code. So it probably is a different version.
Are you gonna up your slides?
Sure, let me do that. Let's see. One meeting file. Let's see, my computer. All right, let's see if I get the right one. Nope, that's not it. That's on the desktop. Let's see. I wish I could make this a little bit bigger. It's probably the smallest font that they can get by with. There it is there. Ting in your future. Good. Adobe.
There is in mine, so.
There it is. It's on its way. You can get it out of chat.
I say this every time, but I love it wants to save it in system 32.
Yes, Sanford.
Just want to know, is Jerry Sass recording this?
I don't know if he was recording it. Okay.
Jerry, I want to get a copy of this.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, the video recording. I want to send this to my son out east.
Oh, in case he wants to sign up for it?
Well, he works for a public utility. He may find this of real interest.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe it'll be showing you things about your utility you don't want them to know. Oh, what's my real uptime? Are you really 3.9 uptime? I don't think so.
But in addition, he lives in a 100-year-old house, and I think this would be
Oh,
really good to know,
Yeah.
what's going on. He's got boilers instead of air conditioners like or furnaces like we do. It's a different setup and old wiring.
Yeah, and he probably has knob and tube, which is really stable. Knob and tube, that was pretty good wiring, knob and tube. Remember, you had maybe barely insulated wires going through walls, wrapped around porcelain insulators, and there was at least 6 inches of air separating the two wires. So it wasn't like there's going to be too many short circuits. It's just that when somebody went and used the Sawzall through that wall,
yeah.
I'm confused by one thing. How many wires do you have to run to install it?
none. I think you just plug into the outlet and it is able to see everything in a single outlet.
Which is what I thought what it looked like, but the instructions say it takes 2 minutes to install.
Well, you have to load the app. You have to load the app on your phone. I think they're including that.
No, they didn't. They said 2 minutes to install the device.
It might take a certain amount of time to switch between your. It's going to do something like what I did with my first my first plugs that they had remote control plugs where you have to connect up to a broadcast Wi-Fi and with the app and then talk to it and then configure it for your specific Wi-Fi. So that's probably why it takes 2 minutes to type in the SSID and the password and get it to connect and then see if it does.
Yeah, I just figured because I could stick something in an outlet and I could in a lot less than 2 minutes.
Oh, no, yeah, but you still have to configure this thing after it powers up to find its Wi-Fi broadcast, okay, to have your phone connect to it with the app. All right, now you're connected and you're in setup mode. All right, now what's the name of your Wi-Fi? Okay, what's the password, and let it go from there. And it probably wants your email address and your phone number and some other stuff to be configured as well.
Names of your kids, your dogs.
Yeah, and what
The
the
wife's
names,
maiden names.
if you had any names for your outlets.
Could it be uploading your Wi-Fi password?
It's very possible it could upload a Wi-Fi password. I mean, anytime you give something a Wi-Fi password, I mean, if you're really paranoid about it, set up a guest Wi-Fi password.
Which I have. So.
Yeah, and then give it the guest one. I mean, if you're concerned about any IoT device, always set up another SSID and let it have that one instead, not your primary. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about that because Win 10 can share it with your other computers. You ever think of that?
Yeah. Win 11 will share it with everybody.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, Win 10, you can restrict it like, hey, don't share my passwords with the other guys that are in the
I
room.
don't.
But Win 11 is going to say, yeah, you have an option whether or not to share it with everyone or just Bill Gates.
I mean, I'm like Dennis. I'm in the insider, so the machine to my right is running 11. I don't understand the joy of rounded corners. Somebody said it's better so you don't poke your eye out, but I don't get that either.
Something else that they had to mess with that they already had working. I would just like them to, like I would like to have a browser that does not think it owns the machine and has to have like 3 or 4 gigabytes just to its lonesome. I think that's getting on ridiculous. Yes, Carl.
Has anybody had any experience with Alibaba? I was doing some research and Google pulled up a couple listings from that site.
Well, Alibaba is one of the largest places you can get stuff from in China. You're
Is it-
talking to the Chinese government more likely when you do something on that site.
Yeah, I heard or I had read that the guy who brought up the site, who created the whole thing, got into a little bit of, they were like on him a little bit to control him more. So yeah, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, you just got to make sure what you're giving it, you're okay with giving. I mean, they're a commercial site, okay? And if something happens to your credit card or something like that, it's a possibility, but I usually have certain credit cards that I can use for international. I usually reserve my Amex for that because they're better at resolving international disputes than some of the local credit card companies. Because they've been doing it for a number of years anyway. And the worst thing that one of these sites wants to do is to make sure that your information is compromised and it gets out that you've got compromised on their site, then that will definitely hurt their market share. Or they may just be so big they don't care.
Alibaba, it's like Alibaba is the Amazon of China.
Yeah.
And I watch on a podcast called GizWiz. They reference and purchase stuff from Alibaba quite a bit on that particular podcast. It's similar to buying stuff from a lot of Chinese vendors that go through eBay, but you can go directly to Alibaba to get it.
Right.
So it's the Amazon of China, and it's twice the size of Amazon in China.
So and there's many things that you order even on Amazon, and then you find out where is it coming from. It's coming from China anyway. So you're dealing with some small guy in China that's shipping you lithium batteries that you don't know where they came from. But this is the one place you can find the battery that fits your phone.
So Carl, whatever you're looking to buy isn't on Amazon, but it's on Alibaba.
Well, I was looking for an outboard motor for a fishing boat, and the U.S. made ones or U.S. listed ones at 2,800,
Yep.
and this place listed some for 750.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah. Just remember, all
everything's
those
great.
connections are metric.
Carl, I have something to add to that. Long time ago, I used to own the first scooter I bought was a Chinese-made scooter. Well, that one only lasted about a year and a half. Carburetors die on those Chinese devices. And then I moved up to a bigger one, another Chinese one, same problem, carburetor problems. They have really bad manufacturing tolerances, shall we say, and a high failure rate. And pretty much, I would say anything with a motor, I would not buy from China.
Okay, thank you.
I would buy it from Japan, but I would not buy it from China.
You did like my brother did. He bought one thing from China, and I didn't believe him. He had a 2.2 kilowatt diesel generator, and it weighed at least 400 pounds. Okay, it's one of the items we did not bring back from Florida for him, for good reason. Didn't want to hurt myself trying to move it.
Good boat anchor.
Yes, it made a very good. I mean, it ran when you could hook it up to a big, really big battery to turn it over. You were not going to pull to start this thing. But yeah, that's the only time